Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to It's Life. How
We're
you
here.
doing there? Hey,
How you doing?
good, good, good. We remember what we did on the last episode, and it was so interesting that I think we should put it in a way where we can fully understand it, because we talked about what life is
hmm
on the last episode. And I think a good way to follow that up is, the thing that's the elephant in the room is death.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, it's like something that we I don't know. I guess I'll go back to my own experience. My mom died when I was 6 years old, and I had no real reference as it relates to what that means.
hmm
Last year, my mom has been dead for 51 years.
Wow.
51 years. And what does that, how does that translate? What is 50 years? I mean, I've lived 51 years. I lived longer than she lived.
hmm
And yet, what role, what impact,
mm
what did death do to me? How did I, how did I handle? What am I doing as a result of this? What role is this play?
Yeah. Wow.
It made me think, and I was like, man, what 50 years? That's wow. Somebody, you think of how old a person is, like, oh, I'm 50 years old. She's been
hmm
dead 50 years.
Right. Hasn't been around.
But this thing called life has still been going on.
Yeah. So how do we equate death in light of what we talked about in the last episode with you looking at it now from the perspective of I'm a participant in life as opposed to it's my life. Death, what is death in relationship to that?
It's interesting because I've come to here it is. I've come to realize
hmm
that there's nothing that we experience in life that does not have a purpose,
Okay.
including death,
Mm.
including death. And so I have concluded that death's purpose is the conclusion of an experience well done. It's whether or not, whatever you've experienced, however you've navigated this experience, death will bring it to a conclusion.
hmm
And it's whatever that navigation, that investment has been,
hmm
it will never change. All it will do will grow, will grow. All it will do is grow. Whatever, it's the conclusion. It's like you don't get to add anything else to it. Whatever you've invested at that point, that's what's going to grow.
So death marks the close of your participation
Yeah,
in life,
yeah.
which ironically something we say often without even thinking about it. Well, death is a part of life, which is actually true.
It plays a role in the experience,
Yeah,
bringing it to a conclusion.
right,
And that conclusion is where you no longer have the opportunity to influence or invest.
right.
And whatever you've invested will be manifested into the next generation.
Why do you think, in light of that, why do you think people are fearful of it?
Because they don't, because here's the point. I don't think many of us want to accept the fact of what they're invested is going to be manifested into the future.
Mm. Wow. Okay.
And see, here's the point. You remember we talked last time we talked, and it was about our role as parents and what we see and what we say and what we do,
Mm-hmm.
and our children follow after what they see, and the results of our parentalness or our witness or our guidance. And this is in life, but I'm just saying, if we go back to the last episode, we were talking about the root of this experience called life is it stimulates, or it starts at the family, because it begins to shape our perspective. Then we begin to see things transpire, or they begin to reveal themselves through the experiences or the behavior of our children, or in society moving forward. And we stop to go, that ain't what I taught them. We have to understand that that's exactly what we invested, is what we invested is what came to pass, is what has grown.
Mm-hmm.
You ever heard the saying that an apple don't fall far from the tree? You don't find an apple hanging out near a grapevine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true.
These are the things that we're up against right now. You got apples and tree apples falling or hanging out in in grapevines and pear orchards, and we're all, how we get here, we put us here. How do we get here though? I mean, we are so far from where we're innately. If this is the case, if we are an apple tree, if
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're trying to produce, grapes shouldn't be falling off.
Right. Right.
Grapes shouldn't be falling off. But only in this human experience, we got grapes falling off apple trees. And yet we going, I'm an apple. You're an apple tree and you got grapes falling off.
Yeah, doesn't work that way.
Now, if you got a result of what's falling off you is grapes, you're grapevine.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you are. You're grapevine.
Yeah.
Let's not think of you want to be an apple tree, but no, you're a grapevine. Now, here's the thing. Be the best grapevine. See value in, I don't care what you are, just be clear that that's what you are, and understand that that's what you're going to produce.
Right.
Everybody has value. Grapes got value, apples got value, pears, peaches, orange, all of them got value. Let's just try not to misunderstand the fact that if you can't be something that you're not, but if we're producing something that we not recognizing, it came from you.
Yeah, and that tacks on to what we were talking about in the last episode in terms of you being a participant and the family unit being the conduit to how these participants even arrive and how they view their level of participation.
Mm-hmm.
And that also kind of speaks to, like you said, the fear around death is that, okay, the investment that I made may not have the level of impact that I wanted, or I wasn't even considering impact because I was living life according to the ideology that it's mine. So I'm going to do what I want to do. And now, as you begin to be faced with mortality, you're like, what do I have to show for it?
What am I leaving?
Yeah. What, as a participant, what can I point to in terms of my impact? And then not knowing, because listen, let's bring it all the way home. I'm going to use myself. Full transparency. I am in a season of life where I am really doing a lot of thinking about legacy. And what will I be able to hand tangibly to my children and grandchildren? And what will I be able to hand in the way of investment intangibly? Character, concepts, ideologies. What am I handing? And because I'm thinking about that and knowing that there's more to do or more that I'd like to contribute as a participant, I don't want the end to come, because I'm like, man, as a participant, there's more action items. And I think many people, whether they want to admit it or not, many people probably think that way from time to time. And we categorize it as fear of death. But essentially what it is that as a participant, especially in light of the last conversation that we had, now that we know it's about participation and what you're doing as a participant, many of us, what we're really grappling with is the fact that as a participant, we feel like there's more we should be doing, or there's things we should have done that earlier on that we didn't do. And now we're realizing the significance of it. And like, man, give me some time to do that first.
I agree. I mean, look, nobody gets this understanding because there's nobody teaching this understanding. You know, this participation concept of being to realize that this experience is not selfish.
Right.
But the one elephant in the room is that death it's to each one of us. It's coming for you and I, and you're not going to avoid it.
Nope.
And to understand that regardless as to where that event catches you at, that's your investment into this to this thing called humanity, this experience. And it's going to continue into the future. And it's like thing that what's behind your name? You know, our pastor used to talk to us about this, is what's behind your name? And the things that you just talked about as it relates to being a parent, you know, the most critical thing I think that we as humans or as participants in this experience is our character. And if we can protect our character and invest that, and here's the thing, we all have the capacity and the capability to protect our character. What we demonstrate, how actions demonstrate our character. And so if we can pass on the character that is beneficial, helpful, caring, these things that prolong existence, caring about, you know, the next generation. These are the kinds of things that we can share. And really, we really have to begin to intentionally do these things, because a lot of the time what can we leave? What is our legacy? Is it some monument or something? No, let's leave character. Let's leave something that they can invest in and continue. You know, I think back to when my dad passed a few years back, and my mom and he when I was born, they bought a house. And they were always saying, no matter what happens, they'll always have a place to live. And that care caused them to keep that house. And it was amazing. We sold that house to take care of my dad.
Mhm.
but it was for his care.
Mhm.
But it was that mindset that they were looking out for us,
Right.
and not knowing that that thing that they were calling to look out for us, we used it to look out for them.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it was the same degree of care that they had for us that we rendered back to them, but it was all about care. It was
Yeah.
about wanting to invest them character. And what they did is that they invested character into us.
Mhm.
That caring for others, granted, we were all in a place where we didn't necessarily need the house, but we needed that help to care for him. So we sold the house, and that house represented care.
Mhm.
It represented care. And we really need to understand that, what we monetarily leave, you know, what's the motive? What are we doing in leaving it if it's not with intention for it to have a service, for it to be able to be used in a way that prolongs and protects and helps the next generation move forward? You
Mhm.
know, it was so many people talked about, I'm gonna leave this house. And look, if they need a place to live, that's one thing. But let's think about what's the purpose? What's the motivation? Why did mom and dad leave this?
Mm.
How many times have we had fights in the family over inheritance?
Yep. Yep.
It's come on. What's the purpose? If one needs it and the other one doesn't, let's not fight over this.
Mhm.
You got 5 or 6 siblings and talking about I want my share. Look, who needs this?
Yeah.
So you got a family member who needs a place to live, and yet everybody else got a place, and they're like, sell it. I want mine.
Mhm.
Come
Yeah.
on now. I
Yeah.
mean, you was doing okay before Mama died. Why is it you can't give it to Mary or Sue that she
Mhm.
can have a place to live? No, she's struggling, haven't got kids and why can't she have a house?
Right.
But you want yours because it's mine. Because it's 1/5 mine. Then do what Mama did and give it to the one who needed it.
Right.
See, I mean, we get into areas where we grow up with like this. I gave them all everything. I gave them everything equally.
Mhm.
They don't need everything equally. They need
Right.
what they need.
Right.
And death will bring it out. You want to see some selfishness, boy. Death will
Bring it
bring it
out.
out.
That will bring it out. Yeah. You want to see how people really feel? That will bring it out. And it's interesting what you're saying too, because the investment, we often look at the investment as not being significant unless it's big. So when you're thinking about impact, man, I want to impact. So think about what we do. We're both speakers, we're both authors, we both have businesses. So the mindset around business development these days is that, man, you got to expand your reach. And so you got to impact these folk, and you got to, you know, engage all these folks, and you got to build this community, and all of that is great, right? But it's really big. And for some people, if that doesn't happen, they dismiss the significance of the things that did happen. And I'll use myself as an example. So those of you who listen to this podcast, you'll get to know me very well because I'm pretty transparent about my experience. And it's funny because sometimes you don't expect people sometimes to be experiencing certain things in their lives when you see them on YouTube or you hear them on podcasts and that kind of thing. But we just talked about this in the last episode. Everybody's a participant, and so am I. And I'm living the way a participant lives, right? So I sometimes get caught up in the fact that my book is not like flying off the shelves. And so I'm not, the bestseller list and here and this and that. And, 90 million copies and all this kind of stuff, right? Sometimes, full transparency, I get caught up in that. Then what it causes me to do is miss the significance of the impact that has already taken place. So I can point to individuals who have said, man, this changed my perspective. Just recently, before this episode that you're listening to right now was recorded, I had somebody tell me, man, this was eye-opening. So your investment, I'm saying all that to say, do not try to categorize your investment. Your duty as a participant is to make an investment. If that investment, no matter where on the spectrum that investment sits, that investment is significant because it will be a catalyst to how the next participant navigates life. So please hear me, guys who are listening to this, ladies and gentlemen. Your duty is to make an investment. Your duty is not to make a humongous investment. If you do and you're blessed to do that, that is phenomenal. But don't let you not getting to that point cause you to miss out on the significance of it.
I'm going to even add into something to that, is that everybody's investment is significant. And it's unique.
And it's unique. That's good.
Original. Never to be gained or given again.
Right.
See, that's the part that really we have to get, because no one is ever going to be able to do what you do. Nobody ever will able to do what I do. And that's where I rest in the fact that I'm an original. And I don't measure it against anybody or anything else, because there is no measuring tool.
Right.
There is no bestsellers list. There is no, monument, nothing that I have to measure. You just took me back to one of the major things that I learned over my life, and is that I'm unique. I'm an original. And I've just got to understand what it is that I have to invest. See, I think many of us struggle with trying to identify that, because we're trying to measure ourselves against other people and other things. I realized real early on that I'm not going to be able to measure up. I'm not going to be able to. And the thing about it is, I never am. I'm never going to measure up. I'm always going to be establishing something new. I'm going to be always learning, growing, and it doesn't matter where. One of the things in my book, Love Made Simple, it's the guide to inner peace, contentment, and success. And the reason that that subtitle is in there is because, especially when it talks about contentment, contentment was there for the purpose of realizing that as I'm continuing to grow, I'm not going to compare myself.
Right.
Because I'm going to be pressing. My motivation is to press. But while I'm there, I'm going to be content with where I am. I'm going to be content. I'm not going to be thinking that I should be somewhere that I'm not. And I'm going to understand, and I'm going to operate in those abilities and those attributes that I have right there where I am, as I continue to press. That's life. I'm going to be pressing until I'm done. But wherever I am, I'm going to be content.
That's good. That's good. That's good. As you were talking, man, I was thinking to myself, man, this is, for those who are listening, who are like, man, I thought this was about life and death. All of this is significant to what we're talking about, because here's the key, goes back to the beginning of something that you said, Juan, is that death is essentially the closing of that time of
Experience.
participation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about a book, right? Imagine being handed a book, has a beautiful cover on it, has a beautiful ending on it. All the pages are blank. So let's call that book life. As a participant, you're handed that book. Your goal now is to write in that book something that can, and when that book is done, that book's going to be handed to another participant that becomes their participation guide. And if you think about a good book, right? When you finish a good book and you close the book, you're like, man, that was good. That's what death is.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That's the conclusion. I mean, it's sort of like any course that you take. You know, you go through the study and all the stuff that you do, the stuff, and then all of a sudden at the end of the course, they give you what? Test.
Mm-hmm.
And that test is the whether or not how well you understood, you gained the concepts and stuff, and you were able to repeat them, be able to show that you understood. That's what you're doing in this sense where you talked about the writing of the book. That's your book. Now, how other people perceive that conclusion that you wrote or that
Mm-hmm.
ending of that course that you ran
Mm-hmm.
is at the significance of that conclusion.
Right.
It's the conclusion. It's how well did you run that course? Here's my
Mm-hmm.
conclusion. And guess what? All of those that are at that point that are here in this experience,
Mm-hmm.
testimony is to testify that that's your conclusion.
Yep.
We basically testified that's who that person was. And I think we won't even get into that because we look at those experiences like funerals and things like that. And sometimes they don't represent
Mm-hmm.
the actual presentation doesn't represent the experience that comes to, but that's our society.
Yeah.
But the actuality is, let's be real, let's be 100. You know, it's supposed to be, we call funerals now, what is it? End of life? What, no, what they call them? Funerals, homegoings, celebration of life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, that's a good indication, but are we living up to the celebration?
Mm. Wow. Wow. Right. Were the moments maximized in a way that warrants celebration?
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
we look at it as also tragic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nobody wants to get to that point
Mm-hmm.
and feel like it was wasn't any value.
Mm-hmm.
But for us that have never known that we had any intention to make it valuable, see, selfishness is not valuable to anybody else.
Right. 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 It's not at all.
And yet so many of us get to that point and have lived this selfish life, and we look at it and see it as loss to who?
Yeah. Listen, I think this word that we've been using is probably going to be used so many times, and that's perspective, right? Because now when you think about death, man, it's actually knowing what death is should actually be motivation to navigate life in a certain way.
You hit it on the head. That's why I was saying, until you understand death, you can't
Mm-hmm.
understand life.
Yeah.
And we run around fearing the elephant in the room. And instead of embracing it so that we can get about our business,
Mm-hmm.
get about making a difference and impact, creating this value. knowing that the moment's all we have, because once death comes, it's conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is. And we've got to understand that this experience is temporary. And when it's over, it's with the intention of, what do we invest? What
Mm-hmm.
did we invest?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a selfish thing.
Yeah.
Look, people think about this. I told you in the last episode, my mom died when I was 6 years old, and she's been dead 50 years, over 50 years, 51 years this year, or last year, be 52 this year. Her impact now is through me, and it's still growing.
Mm.
She's having a bigger impact in death, after life, than she did in the 37 years that she lived.
Wow.
She has 4 children that are impacting life. We will live on beyond our death in the impact, in the investment that we've sow into this experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the bigger picture. We can't stop it. It's just, what is it that we want to invest? You can either be those that are doing those things to advance and protect humanity, or you can be a part of those that are destroying and devastating humanity.
Yeah.
You get the choice. You get to choose. But whatever's behind your name, it's going to be behind your name forever.
Mm-hmm.
Forever. And it's, what do you want behind your name? You won't be here, but they'll still be seeing it behind your name.
That's right. And it will be impactful.
Absolutely.
That's good.
It's a conclusion that we all are going to gain, and yet we all have the power to determine what that will look like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after we're gone.
Yeah. That's good. Listen, if you're listening, you got something to think about. Between this episode and the last episode, you got something to think about. It's perspective. It's a perspective shift that can prove to be monumental for generations to come, based on how you absorb this information and the adjustments you make as a result.
It's all up to you.
Yep.
It's all up to you. And I think as we begin to make those changes, those adjustments, and I think this has been one of the things that I've desired to do over the years, and that is just give you a different perspective. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying, here's another option.
Right.
If you're running into, you're doing the same thing over and over again, getting the same results,
Mm-hmm.
try a different perspective.
Yeah, you don't have anything to lose.
Try a
That's it.
different perspective. And the wonderful thing about what we're sharing with you today is that you get to dictate and determine the outcome. Nobody else can tell you or determine your outcome when you put the perspective that you saying, okay, this is my intent. This is my intent.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being my intention, you can't stop me. You can't prevent it.
Right.
You can't prevent it. But again, you got to get to the point where you understand yourself. And I don't know if we will, but one of the key components to this is self-development.
Mm-hmm.
As it relates to making an investment, before you can make that investment, you've got to develop yourself. And that means that you've got to do some introspection. You've got to get into knowing who you are so that you can be able to give it ultimately after you go through the process of knowing yourself. And a lot of us, we are entering into this thing called life and we don't know ourselves. And as a result, we're trying to figure out who we are and understand life at the same time. And it gets confusing. It gets confusing. So
Yeah.
this was a deep one.
This was a deep one. Yeah, but it's beneficial. And I hope for those of you who are listening that I hope that it's causing you to think, right? Because I like what you said. Not trying to tell you what to do. Not even trying to tell you what to think. Just allow it to cause you to think, right? Because when you open yourself up for that level of insight and self-discovery and self-actualization, you cannot go through that process. Once you open yourself up to that, you can't go through that without coming out on the other side with the realization that some adjustments need to be made.
Yeah. I mean,
So open yourself up for that.
hey, this was, if anybody wants to reach you or reach out to you, how can they do that?
So they can do that by social media. You can either look up my name, Oliver Marcelle, or you can go and look at Denali, Denoli, LLC, author, speaker, coach, author of the book Overcoming the Man Laws for the man who wants to be his best despite what he was taught, coach in the relationship building and men's empowerment spaces. You can email me, oliver@denali.org, and I would love to connect with you.
Great. Hey, and you can reach me at Juan Lee, the author. You can go check me out, check my book out there also. Also, I'm on all the social media, Juan Lee Author on Facebook, and you can email me at many other places. But if you go to my Instagram page, there's some tips, and that's just Juan Lee Author on how we can live a more successful life. But just reach out. I'm here wanting to help. Also, Clear Journey, which is the nonprofit that I have founded, and we're going to be going to summit in September. So keep an eye out and look out for that if you want to support me in that venture, and that's clearjourney.org. But other than that, we look forward to having another time to come back, get together, Oliver, and we can do a little bit more about its life. So until
Indeed.
then, we'll see you all next time.
Later.